Amazing work. And the last component that is going to be displayed on all pages is going to be the sidebar. So I think we might as well just complete our work as far as the global components and work on our sidebar. Now, one thing about the footer, if you would want to have space in between the year and the name of the company, you can just add the space over here and you should see the name eventually there. Or I'm sorry, the space, I guess. I'm going to close the footer, and the moment I'll close the card buttons and navbar as well, even though we'll have to go back here. And I'm going to go to the sidebar where it is. There it is. So now I have my sidebar. As you can see, again, we have a bunch of imports. We have the logo, since we'll display it. And by the way, I'm going to make the screen size smaller just so you can see what we've got in the sidebar. So there it is. We have the logo. We have different icon. So this is going to be the close icon. Again, we're using the same library, React icons. Then we have all our links. And in this case, we do display the checkout. But again, we'll use the same links initially. So these are going to be coming from the constants, the first three. And this one will be displayed conditionally. If we have logged in, we'll display it. If we haven't, then it's going to be hidden. And of course, like I said, the card buttons as well. One for the card page and the second one for the login and logout functionality. So logo coming from the same assets, and I'm not going to cover that again. I already talked about it in navbar. Link, because of course we are setting up links. Use product context, because eventually I'll set up the toggle functionality globally, even though at the moment we'll just do it manually over here inside of the sidebar. F8 times, that's the close icon. Links, of course, links coming from the constant. Then styled components. So this is my styled component. So all my styling card buttons, like I said, I also would want them in the sidebar. And then use user context. Eventually will get me the value, whether the user has logged in or hasn't logged in. So if the user has logged in, then of course I would want to display the checkout. If not, then I'm going to hide it. And as far as the return, we'll simply start with sidebar container. Just go with the name, whatever is the name over here. And then inside of it, I'm going to have my aside. Now, remember, whenever we talked about the toggling, what did we do? We added one class, and then depending on the value, we added the other class or we didn't. And the reason why is that happening, because by default, I will hide the sidebar. Notice here I have z index of -1, and also I translate by 100%, and then only if there's a class of show sidebar, then I display it. So this is going to be the class that is going to be responsible for the toggling. So let me scroll up, and inside of this sidebar container, I'm going to go with my aside element. And in order to speed this up, I'll right away set up the operator, the ternary operator, and I'll just use the local value. Now, like I said, eventually, meaning in the next video, we'll set up the functionality globally in one of the contexts. But for now, I'm just going to go is open, and by default, I'll say true because I would want to show it. And then in that aside, I'll check. I'll say, yeah, class name. And of course, it's going to be sidebar class and the other class, the show sidebar, but the show sidebar is going to be displayed conditionally. That's why we'll set up our expression. We need to go with template literals. And in here, I'll say is open if it is true, which should be true, correct? Because we have it as default value. Then I'm going to go with two classes over here. Then I'll say my question mark, and then I would want to get the sidebar class and show sidebar class. However, if it is false, which at the moment, of course, we can control only manually, then I'm just going to display show sidebar class. And in this aside, there's going to be a header. So sidebar and then header. And inside of it, we're going to go with image. Now, this is not going to be a link, so I'm just going to go with img. As far as the source, the name again is logo. I'll add the class name since there's a little bit of styling. So class name is logo here. And text, I don't know, I'm going to say comfy and then sloth. And there's going to be a button that closes the sidebar. But at the moment, of course, there's no functionality yet. So we're just going to go with button, then class name, and we're going to say close hyphen btn. And you know what? Let's add also type. Type will be button. And inside of this button, let's just go with our icon, FA, and then times. Let's save it. We should see the sidebar. And of course we do. There it is. Of course, now it is displayed. Why? Because this one is true. Again, something we have already done quite a few times. So hopefully we are all on the same page. If I'll change this to false, of course, I cannot see it. Now, there's some issues over here, so I can technically still see it, but don't worry. Once we're done with our component, it's not going to be the case. So I'm going to go back to true over here. And then once we've got everything in place, now I would want to go with my links. And the way we do that, again, we have our div. And right next to this div, I'm going to go with unordered list. And again, we have a class of links. And in here, I'm going to go with links. So I'm iterating over those links. So I'm using the map, of course. And then I'm going to go with the structuring. Remember, each link was an object. And I can either have it as a name here, or I can also destructure it right here. So I'm going to go with ID, text, and URL. Same three properties. And as far as the return, we're going to go with li, so list item, and then we'll add a key. So this is going to be that ID, of course. And inside of this list item, let's go with a link. And again, 2. And then, of course, we're having the same URL. And eventually there's going to be on click, since I would want to close the sidebar once I click on links, something that I showed you a little bit earlier. But for now, let's just place a text. So that should be our links. Okay, awesome. Then I also would want to display the checkout one by default. Eventually, of course, we will check whether the user is there. But for the time being, let me just grab this one. And I don't need to have a key here. And as far as the values, I'll set them up manually, where this is going to point to a checkout. And of course, text will also be checkout. So we're going to go here with a checkout and then text. Let's save that. We should see the checkout. And last thing that I would want to place here is the cart buttons. Remember the component we set up in the last video. We save it here. And we should see the cart buttons. That should do it for the sidebar component. Let me just check, though, why we had those issues. So I'll change this manual value to false. And it should be hidden, but it's not. And I actually can see my bug. Notice here, I'm saying if is open is true, then I would want to have classes of sidebar and then show sidebar. However, if it is false, then I would just want to add show sidebar. So that is not correct. If the is open is false, then I would just want to add the sidebar class. And if it is open, only then I'll add this show sidebar. So once we save, we're not going to see the sidebar. So we only see the sidebar if the is open is true, which of course, eventually, meaning in the next video, we will set it up in one of our contexts. And then, of course, there's also going to be a toggle functionality. So let's set this up still as false. So let's hide it. And I guess let's start setting up the context where we will toggle the sidebar.